What's up, everybody? I'm 24/7 Sports Director of Scouting Adam Finkelstein, and you are watching or listening to College Basketball Recruiting Weekly. This week on 247sports.com, it was dedicated to a lot of NBA content. I looked at the rookie class, I looked at the sophomore class, so to speak, and what we're doing on this show is we are tracing those classes back to their final years in high school. So we are going to do a retroactive kind of rankings rewind, if you will, on the classes of 2021 and 2022. We're going to talk about the guys we got right. We're going to talk about the guys we got wrong, try and figure out why that happened and where things stand now, because frankly, it's not over yet. And these players are continuing to evolve and they could still change. Joining me will be Eric Bossi and Travis Branham. We're going to get right into it, beginning with the class of 2021. We hope you enjoy.
The way we've done this is all three of us have ranked 1 to 10 our individual board. We have then turned that into an average, and we will kind of give you some historical context in terms of where guys were ranked at the end of their high school career and where they ended up getting drafted. We're going to try and do this rapid fire because we got 20 different guys to go through. So we're going to start in the class of 2021. Now, spoiler alert, all three of us have the same guy at number 1. Obviously, this came down to Chet Holmgren and Paolo Banchero. Here's my question. Did any of you guys have Paolo number 1? Either of you on your individual boards have Paolo number 1 at any point in the process?
I'll start. I actually really went back and forth with him and Chet for a while. I loved Paulo's combination of skill and strength, but at the end of the day, I kept leaning back towards Chet after a brief flirtation with Paolo at number 1, and I think as of right now, it's looking like it was the right choice, but you really can't go wrong with either. I mean, there's a chance that they could be the back-to-back rookie of the years.
What's ironic about this group is that even though they were drafted 1 and 2, and remember, this was the draft night where everybody thought Jabari Smith was going number 1, and then there was the Woj bomb, and then the other Woj bomb, and it seemed like Vegas was the only one that knew that Jabari was actually not going number 1, but it came down to Paolo and Chet, 2 players that have been ranked against each other since the very beginning. Here's where their stats are right now. And we're recording this Tuesday, right after the quarterfinals or the first round of quarterfinals of the in-season tournament. Paolo, coming off his rookie of the year win last year, he's averaging 19.5 points, almost 7 boards, almost 5 assists. His 3-point percentage is at 44%. Free throw percentage dipping to 67, but he's turning the ball over like 3 times per game. Now, conversely, Chet is at 17.6 points, so about 2 less, 8 rebounds, that's about 1 more, 2.6 assists, so he's not nearly the creator for others, 2.2 blocks, almost a steal per game, and the offensive efficiency and the skill set, I think, is what's really been able to drive winning in OKC. 53% from the floor, 40% from 3, 87% from the free throw line. I went back and checked my tweet history as it related to Chet yesterday. And one of the things that I thought was downright comical is on draft night, there were people saying that this guy wasn't very skilled. I think that's been proven otherwise at this case. But nonetheless, we are all aligned in Chet at 1 and Paolo number 2. The third guy on this list comes, Bossi's got a point. We're using the raise the hand function today on the show, folks. We're going to give this a shot.
I'm just wondering who on earth had Chet as unskilled, and can we throw a couple of those tweets up there and publicly humiliate them on this? Because that's,
what's funny?
There's he's too skinny, there's he's that, but the last thing I thought anyone would be arguing with Chet is that he's not skilled.
When I do the Twitter shade, I don't call people out by name. I just generally refer to something stupid someone said and don't totally put them on blast. It's kind of passive aggressive of me. So I don't remember exactly who said it, to be honest. Nonetheless, all right, we'll check to see if there's a hand up. We're in good shape. Now, the choice for 3 in this class came down to Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson. Now, for a little bit of context, Scoot Henderson, Trav, correct me if I'm wrong because you saw him more than anyone, was originally part of the class of 2022. He then moved up to 2021, basically graduating a year early or finishing high school a year early, however we're going to word it, to do 2 years in the Ignite. These guys are both now teammates with the Blazers. Shaedon Sharpe finished third overall in the 24/7 Sports Composite. The reason I'm using the composite scores is because in this class, I was still at ESPN, and I think you guys were both here at 24/7, so we were not on the same, doing the same rankings at this point. Shaden finished third, and Scoot finished 10th. But Trav, you still have Scoot ahead of Shaden. Tell us why.
Simply because I'm not writing him off. Yes, he's had a pretty atrocious start to the season. A lot of the things that we saw last year with the Ignite simply aren't translating as well, or he's simply taken a step backwards, especially in the shooting department. But the talent is still there. He's still extremely young. And let's be honest, the situation in Portland is not necessarily great right now, and it's not going to be conducive to development and success and guys of this age who really need some others to kind of bring them in under their wing to show them the ropes of the NBA. It's not really conducive to their development and just being successful. So I'm still all aboard the Scoot train. Again, it's been an atrocious start to the season for him. No way to sugarcoat it, but you're also seeing some signs of the passing and playmaking starting to come through a little bit. So I think he's got a long career ahead, and he's still got a lot to be excited about as a prospect, no matter how ugly it is right now.
All right, Scoot Henderson has played 10 games because he's had an ankle injury, started 5 of those, playing 25 minutes per night, 9 points, almost 3 boards, a little more than 4 assists. The problem, though, has been 3.4 turnovers, 34% from the field, 22% from the three-point line. So obviously there are some efficiency issues at play. Should also mention the pressure of having to succeed Dame Lillard, arguably the best player in franchise history, although I think Clyde Drexler would like a word, and then having to do so without Simons, who went down and was their most proven returning scorer in the backcourt. So it's really been him and Shaden Sharp together when they are healthy. Shaden Sharp, conversely, in 18 games so far this year, averaging almost 18 points per game, almost 6 boards, 3.5 assists, 41% from the field, so not great, 34% from 3, 84% from the free throw line. Bossi, I'm curious your take on this, because you and I both had Shaden number 3 on our personal boards. Trav had him at 4. My concern with Shaden in high school is that for as athletic as he was, I never saw him, and please call me out here if you disagree, I never saw him blow right by guys in high school. Like, if he got to the rim in transition, he'd rise up and it'd be with thunder, but it was almost like he was, even coming into the draft, kind of evolving as more of like a shooter and an athlete, but not necessarily a guy who put as much pressure on the rim as you would expect. What's your take on that?
I think there's a little bit of both to that. The thing with Shaden is he's one of those guys that he's tough to gauge sometimes because he makes things look so easy because of his extreme athleticism, and he's comes off as nonchalant a lot of the time. Like, you don't know, is this guy playing hard? Is he not? And, a little bit of some of the questions that still get attached to Andrew Wiggins. It's that case of, does he make it look easy because he's so talented, or does he make it look easy because he's not trying? Right. And so I think we get a little bit of that with Shaden. And like you say, because he was so athletic and so explosive, it's like, dude, just go to the rim every time you touch it, because no one's going to stop you. Right. But he's not wired that way. He's not the most physical guy. He's not yet proven to be the most competitive guy, but he is proven to be extremely talented and someone for whom the game comes quite easy. And, it'd be tough to nitpick him too much at this point, given his early production. I mean, the dude just turned 20.
Fair point. All right. So far, the re-rankings, we have Chet and Paolo at 1 and 2. That is a match of what we had 2 years ago. Shaden Sharp at 3. That is also a match of what we had 2 years ago, or I should say what the composite had. Scoot Henderson, who finished at 10, up to 4. That brings us to number 5, fellas. Now, Bossi and I had the same guy at number 5. That's Jalen Duren. Trav had him down at number 7. I'll say it pretty plainly. To me, Jalen Duren was one of the youngest players in the draft a couple of years ago, and he has proven himself, at least in my book, to be a very legitimate NBA caliber center. He was a monster in high school, and frankly, he's a monster in the NBA too. He's just that physically dominant. In about 29 minutes per game this year, he's averaging 12 points, 11 rebounds, and about a block and a half per game. Now, the Pistons are atrocious. They're just horrible. Worst team in the NBA by win-loss record, but he's been really good, and I think he's a starting center for the next decade plus in the NBA. Trav, you had him at number 7. Anything in particular that you are concerned with for Duren?
Not so much. It's more of I'm still not writing off a guy like Jabari Smith. Again, it's similar to Scoot Henderson. He's in a situation that's just not necessarily a situation where he's able to succeed. It's the Houston Rockets are not necessarily in a I don't know how to put it politely, but just not in a great situation right now. And so anytime you bring in a really young player into those types of scenarios, it's never a shock or a surprise to see them kind of struggle or not be as good as what we were expecting to be. So I think you put him into a different scenario where he's able to kind of buy into a bit of a different role. I think we could see a guy like Jabari Smith kind of tap into that potential that we were expecting him to become when he was at Auburn.
Now, you had Jabari 5 on your re-ranking. Bossi and I both had him 6. And you mentioned Auburn. Here's where I'm at. I'm starting to wonder if that year at Auburn was the outlier. Because, again, you guys jump in with my revisionist history here. I remember Jabari Smith more as like a mid-range darling throughout most of high school who gradually extended his shooting range out. And then Auburn, he was like a straight driller. There were a lot of questions about how much pressure could he put on the rim that I think have continued to the NBA level. But right now, the outlier in terms of his numbers, just as I look it up here, I mean, as a rookie, this guy shot 30.7% from the three-point line this year. As in his second year, he's up to 35.8, which is good, but not great if you're going to hang your hat on it. He finished as the 7th ranked player in that class, was drafted 3rd overall, but had some buzz to go as high as number 1 before that quick kind of 11th hour change from Orlando, at least as it was relayed in the media. So I just don't know. I just think like this is a guy who's never really attacked the rim and who's got to be the knockdown shooter we saw at Auburn if he's gonna, live up to that hype. But nonetheless, all 3 of us have him in our top 6. This is where it gets interesting because now 7th overall is Jordan Hawkins. Now, Jordan Hawkins is the first player on this list who is not a one and done. He finished 51st overall in the 24/7 Sports Composite 2 years ago. He was drafted 14th overall this past year. Obviously, CJ McCollum goes down with an injury. Jordan Hawkins has gotten a lot of early minutes, first 20 games of the season, and he has proven to be every bit the movement shooter that was projected. But Trav, you have him 6th overall on your board. Bossi had him 7th. I had him 8th. Trav, why are you so high on Jordan Hawkins?
Just the shot making, the level of shots he's able to make, whether it be flying off a screen and just finding the open spots. I think what he does is going to be able to contribute at a winning level for a very long time in the NBA. So what he's been able to show already to me is exciting and promising. So moving forward, that's one reason why I'm so high on him. But again, as you guys were talking about Jalen Duren, there's obviously a strong case to be made there. But just year one, seeing what Jordan Hawkins is doing, is definitely exciting to me.
I think it's probable we see a little bit of a regression in Jordan Hawkins' numbers, at least the total numbers, now that CJ McCollum is healthy. But I think that what you've seen in New Orleans through the first 20 games is that they now have their CJ McCollum replacement. I mean, CJ's 32 years old. It remains to be seen, how long he has, or at least how long in his prime. And as you look at that roster with Zion and Brandon Ingram, being able to add a movement shooter with a lot of gravity like Jordan Hawkins, I think obviously he's got a long and bright future there. So all the way up to number 7 in these re-rankings. Number 8 is Jeremy Sohan. I was highest on him. I have him at 7. Trav and Bossi, you both have him at 8. My case for Jeremy Sohan is simply that he's an NBA starter. And what's fascinating about it is he started at the 4 last year as a rookie. This year, they're playing him at the point guard. And this is someone who's 6'9" and with a 7'2" wingspan. I personally I mean, far from me to question Greg Popovich. I'm not here to do that, obviously. I don't know that he's a point guard long term. I think it's about getting him on the court with Wemby and Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson. I think long term, maybe Wemby's at the 5 and Sohan is at the 4, but I think they're really trying to let Wemby be a roamer defensively and so play him with a true 5 where he can kind of patrol the paint and really be aggressive looking for blocks. But Sohan is so versatile, was known as a non-shooter, and it's still not great, but he's made strides, and he's one of the best defensive players we've talked about so far. His ranking is a little bit misleading because he played his last season, I believe, abroad. He grew up in Bossi, correct me if I'm wrong, but he grew up in Germany, came over here and played his junior year at La Lumiere, and then in the backdrop of COVID, he went back to Europe. So while you guys ranked him when you were at 24/7, when I was at ESPN, we were not ranking international kids. So it really skews where he's at in the 24/7 sports composite. But he ended up doing 1 year at Baylor, being picked 9th overall. And in this re-ranking, we've got him at 8. He's 7 on my board, 8 for you guys. All right, that brings us to number 9. And we're going to round out the top 10 here with, actually, we're going to stay in San Antonio for Malachi Branham. He finishes at 9th overall in this re-ranking. Trav, you had him at 9. I had him at 9 as well. Bossi, he was not on your board. But Trav, I will go back to you about what was it specific about Malachi Branham, who finished in that class 38th overall, that was better than you expected.
Yeah, no question. I mean, none of us even expected him to be a one and done type player. But the reason I had him at number 9 is just simply that he is proven to be a contributor at the NBA level. Some of the other guys that are on this list that we were kind of weighing our options between, we're kind of in a similar mold, but I would say that Malachi is a little bit more proven at this point. So what he's been able to do, I think we had him ranked like just outside of the top 30 when he was coming out of high school. So he is one that we clearly just had a bit of a miss on in the long run, but credit to him. He put in a lot of work to just continue developing that outside shot and become that versatile 3-man that we see today.
8 points per game off the bench as a rookie, averaging double figures this year in about 23.5 minutes for the Spurs. Bossi, number 10th in this re-ranking is an Eric Bossi special. And I'm going to probably mispronounce his name because that's what I do. But Brandon Podziemski, did I say that right?
Podziemski, somewhere in there.
So he goes to Illinois as a freshman. He does not play. Now, credit to you guys. He was 107 in the composite, but he was 72 at 24/7 Sports 2 years ago. Again, full disclosure, hand in the air. I was not with the group at that time, so you guys were 100% right with him. Does not play at Illinois. I'm sure you guys were being told how wrong you were. Transfers to Santa Clara, blows up, and plays his way into the first round. You and Travis both have him in your top 10. He's just outside my top 10 at this point. But tell me about this kid's story, why you have him this high, and what we've learned about him in the last few years.
Yeah, so you got to remember, for all these kids in the class of 2021, this was a class that we were pretty hamstrung in our ability to evaluate these guys. They lost the spring
100%.
and summer of 2020 due to COVID, and then their senior year in 2021 was a really mixed bag depending on where you lived and what the rules were with playing. And then also we had travel restrictions imposed on us by work. Understandable, that happened to everyone. So
I was grounded for a year and a half. I should have said that earlier. Spot on.
Yeah, no. So with Brandon, he kind of came out of nowhere with his and he proved me right on this. Antonio Curro, his summer program coach, really starting to pump him during that summer of 2020 when no one could see anybody play. And I happened to go to a camp in the Milwaukee area in the fall of 2020, and I saw him play, and I was like, well, I don't know the competition, I don't know whatever, but I think this guy could end up being kind of like a top 50 guy. It was one where we went from kind of chuckling at him getting offers from Kansas, Kentucky, and some of these places to like, I actually think this guy might be able to play there. And he put up absurd numbers. What always stood out to me was he was exceedingly tough. And for a guard, he can really, really rebound on top of shooting and scoring and all that stuff. So I just saw a lot of stuff that translated. Now, did I think he was going to be in the NBA already? No, but I did think it was wild that he could barely even get off the floor or off the bench at Illinois. And then, in fact, I took some heat in the 24/7 group texts, not only while he was in high school, but as he was at Illinois and then he was at Santa Clara. I was kind of pumping up, that what he's doing. And I got hit with the, well, everyone finds their level thing. And I was, at that time, I was like, well, his level is conference player of the year in the West Coast Conference. And now his level is legitimate, productive NBA bench player for the Golden State Warriors, and a guy who looks like he's going to stick in the league for a long time. So just a really cool thing. Love seeing guys like this kind of come out of nowhere without a chance to really do it on a big stage. And, you got to go with your gut off the video. Obviously, I would have loved that we had ranked him higher, but
you had him higher than anybody. Wasn't close.
But I also don't know that, even if we would have left him in, say, the top 50 where I felt he belonged, we wouldn't have ranked him high enough compared to where he is now. But all in all, I feel pretty good about, one, getting a good lead from his program director, Antonio Curro, and then two, just the follow-up that we did on it and made sure that we didn't, let the guy slip through the cracks.
As Bossi said, that is one take he had that he got a lot of heat for, and he led the charge on that. So all credit to him. This class, just this top 10 is just funny to me. Like, we had that one, Brandon Pajimski, one of the more not necessarily controversial, but polarizing takes we had amongst the 24/7 sports team. And then also the number 1 and number 2, Paulo and Chet. Like, that debate, I'll never forget. That was when we first got hired, or when I first got hired. Bossi was about to be hired by us. And that, to this day, will live in infamy, that debate we had as we were going through rankings of Paulo, Chet, or Jabari. Golly, why am I? PB.
You're forgetting PBJ.
That's what I'm saying, PBJ.
Wow.
To this day, that day lives in infamy. The all-time most heated debate, hands down. And I am happy to say I was extremely bullish and have always been Chet number 1 and leading that train from day one. But just those two guys, and all credit to Bossi and just leading that charge for us. And obviously it was a hit, but still we were too low on him, as he said.
All right, so here's how that class finished up 2 years ago. Chet was 1, and this is according to the composite. Again, Chet was 1, Paulo was 2, Shaedon Sharpe was 3. That is consistent where we would re-rank them. Jaden Hardy was number 4. Now, for what it's worth, Jaden Hardy would have been 10 on my board right now. He's getting backup minutes for the Mavs behind Kyrie and Luka. I just don't think that's a great fit for him. I'd love to put him in Golden State where Brandon is. And I think, those two tails could be inverted, so to speak. Amani Bates was number 5. Jalen Duren was number 6. Jabari Smith was number 7. Patrick Baldwin was number 8. Kennedy Chandler was number 9. And Scoot Henderson was number 10. Now, again, this is a class that was, we talked about being grounded by COVID. And then there were these rush of reclassifications, everybody from Amani, Jalen Duren, and Scoot Henderson, that made it really, really tough. All right, so our final re-ranking: Chet, Paulo, Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson, Jalen Duren. Those are the first 5. Jabari Smith at 6, Jordan Hawkins at 7, Jeremy Sohan at 8, Malachi Branham at 9, Brandon Podziemski at 10. Also want to shout out a few other guys that I don't want to say were underrated, but have proven to be better than I think anybody expected coming out of high school. AJ Griffin, hand up. I messed that up more than anyone. Although I would say his sophomore season is kind of regressing to the mean a little bit here in Atlanta. Kobe Buffkin was 46. He ended up being a lottery pick after 2 years. Alex Caravan was 118 in the composite, although he was much, much higher where I was. Conversely, Terquavion Smith was number 9 in the composite, although much higher in your guys' board. And then Dom Barlow, 132. I will never forget seeing Dom Barlow play during COVID on an outdoor court at the Jersey Force practice. First time I ever got to see him play, he ended up growing 2 more inches.
All right, everybody, that was our retroactive look at the national class of 2021, which correlates now to NBA second-year guys if they were one and done. Of course, not everybody was one and done. And remember, this is the first in a 2-part series as we take this look back at rankings. Coming up next will be the class of 2022. You can find that on the 24/7 Sports channel. Until then, be sure to keep it on 247sports.com and the 24/7 Sports YouTube page. We'll see you real soon.